pleasant good afternoon and welcome to APNU AFC Live this afternoon. It's the afternoon rush and I'm with you, Randolph Critchlow. We want to say thank you as usual to everyone joining us internationally in the region and right here in Guyana as we bring to you the credible and valid information as we normally do. It has been 379 days since the March 2nd regional and general elections and the country still does not have credible results. 226 days since this fraudulent administration would have been installed on those fraudulent numbers gleaned from the recount and the hands of this creeping dictatorship that we see in our country. 226 days of this fraudulent administration. Welcome all. Good afternoon. It is the 19th of March. It is Friday the 19th of March 2021 and we're happy to have you here. I like to say good afternoon to all of those persons who are joining us as we see you jump on the live. You can start by telling us where you're joining us from this afternoon. Those persons we refer to our APNU AFC family, our Guyanese, our in the diaspora, in the Caribbean region. We're seeing you joining the live. Just drop a line and say where you're catching the program from this afternoon as we bring you the credible and valid information. Right, we are ready to go this afternoon. We are going to be unpacking as we do on the afternoon rush. The rush is on, people. We are ready. Those persons who are on their way home from work this afternoon, it's TGIF. We want to say, of course, as we welcome in the weekend, Sakan joining us from Tiger Bay, from Queens, from Canada, from Barbados, from Brooklyn. Right, Brooklyn again. Antigua, our friends out there in Antigua, welcome. Those persons who are joining us from Guyana, thank you very much. Toronto in the house. New York, Atlanta, wow. Joining us from all over the world as we, of course, welcome you and let you know that it's a simple price of admission. Like my colleague Sherry Duncan would say, it's a simple price for admission that you share the live stream and let others know that we are live. And direct on a Friday afternoon. TGIF, we want to say a special good afternoon to all of those workers, those public servants who, of course, on Friday you have a little earlier, as people call it, knock-off time. So we're hoping that you're using your time wisely. Right. We logging in from Paris. We want to say thanks from Barbados, from Florida, Brooklyn. Right. Caneville in the ring. Then the ring is about 8 o'clock, but we're in the rush right now. You're joining the rush this afternoon. We're in the afternoon rush here. The ring is a little later down at 8 p.m. Still, we want to say thank you very much for being a part of this. Samantha Point, thank you very much for joining. Happy Friday to you. Happy Friday to everybody, every single body joining the live as we are welcoming and we're ready to hit the road with this afternoon rush on a Friday afternoon. As my header says, the teachers and the public servants want the money. And that is what we're going to be dealing with today. But before we start with that, folks, we're heading, share the live stream. French Guiana, thank you very much for joining us. Trinidad and Tobago, we're always happy to have all of you. New Jersey, Diamond in the house. You know, we got home early there, Diamond, to be logging in right now because, you know, to go up that east bank at this point in time is very hectic. You know, I don't know how you people do it in Diamond with that traffic in the morning. If you're not out at a certain time, you're trapped in that traffic. The persons who are joining us on Diamond, you know, I don't know how you guys do it. Right, joining you from London, thank you very much. Texas, Devout, I love it. Guys, we are going to be unpacking some information today, and we're going to be focusing on the public servants, of course, and those teachers. And we're going to be speaking with Miss Coretta McDonald, representative of the Guyana Teachers Union, because there are a lot of things happening. School is going to be reopened very soon. Teachers are still inquiring about their salary concerns. So we want to get some insight on what is happening with those issues, right? But like I said at the beginning, 226 days of this administration, and we are in it. We are in it. Somebody is logging in all the way from Africa. Wow. Boy. All right. We are going to be jumping into the topics today. What happened today? What is in the rush today? What are we talking about this afternoon? Protests continue. Protests continue. Today we had another protest outside of the office of the president. There you see the people out there making their voices heard. It is a sad thing when you look around the country and you realize that this is the only means of getting your voices heard, of getting through to this fraudulent administration, is to take the streets. Peacefully protesting. Peacefully protesting. Alright? We have someone who's saying that they don't have any audio. We hope that we're being heard loud and clear. Just give me a signal that you're hearing me loud and clear as we start the conversation this afternoon. Protests continue. Today we had another protest in Georgetown, and we are going to be talking with someone who was out there as a concerned citizen, not wearing our usual hat, but as a concerned citizen out there. And she's going to tell us what happened today on the road. Guys, it is really, really interesting to see how this PPP, the fraudulent PPP government, is treating Guyanese. I came across an interesting photograph that asks a simple question: do you still have your pink slip? This is one of the sore points of what played out since this administration was installed. The PPP government took over this country during the heights of COVID-19. They knew the struggles of Guyanese. They knew that Guyanese needed relief. There was a big hoorah about every single household receiving this money. And this ties in to what I'm showing you here. People are protesting this government every single day. It ties into this. People are protesting this government every single day. And you wonder why. Simple things like the COVID-19 cash grant dispersal. The fact that such a simple thing, such a simple process, had to be subject to so much politics and discrimination. There's a saying that when rain falls, it don't fall on one person's house top. Every single Guyanese, despite of the race, despite of the political affiliation, despite of the age, despite their gender, they were affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. And relief was sought and relief was garnered so that every single household in Guyana could benefit. Yet we saw the PPP, through the tin pot dictator Damlal, making a total mess of the COVID-19 cash grant distribution. You heard all manner of things when it came to certain communities. And there are confirmed reports, not just allegations, confirmed reports of persons in certain communities, the entire household, not just one cash grant per household, every single person, every single adult in that house that could have presented an ID card received $25,000. That is how arbitrary and ad hoc the distribution was. Then people are walking around in South Granville asking persons if they own the house. Georgetown, where so many persons rent, those people who are renting were affected by COVID too. They needed relief too. Yet they were given a pink slip. So when I saw the picture that said, "Do you still have your pink slip?" I wonder how that pink slip is working out for you right now. What is that pink slip going to do for you? And whether or not the PPP is going to come back and give you any money after you hold that pink slip. Right? So, these are the things. That is just one. Folks, we would take the entire show to go through the indiscretions of this fraudulent administration. But I digress. I am speaking about the protests that happened today. And we're going to dig deeper into this a little later. But what is the big story? What is the big story? This is the big story. And I want you to understand what is happening and what is about to happen in this country. We're picking up this report from Village Voice, the Guyana Public Service Union. They are, of course, writing the president to say, look, what is happening? The union alerts the president to say the delay is robbing workers from earning what they should. And I was wondering, folks, when these unions are going to be vocal. We don't see anything in the budget for the public servants. No increase. And then they're delaying and dragging their feet on this the negotiation for the workers. So we're watching this with keen eyes. Then of course we picked up on another story. Still a part of the big story. So we picked up on the big story. The GTU wants money owed by government. Calls meeting to inform teachers about, right, the discussions with the MOE. The stagnated discussions, that is. Now, folks, we saw that teachers came out and they protested. They were promised increase. Right? 2016, 2017. The multi-year agreement between the union and the Ministry of Education. Right? Which is now outdated. What is happening? To help us explain or to give us some insight as to what is happening, I'm going to welcome MP Coretta McDonald, who is no stranger to you. She's on this channel quite often with her show, Advancing the Cause. But she's going to join us now, and we're going to have a discussion today on this big story. MP, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon to you, Randy, and thanks for being on your program again.
Right. MP McDonald, I just showed, let me just put this back here. And you know, I want our viewers to get a better idea, because I am not able to articulate on behalf of the union and on behalf of the teachers exactly what is happening. And as someone who is a part of the education system, as I am concerned too about what is happening. What is the latest? You know, the people say, what is the latest as it relates to this negotiation between the union and the Ministry of Education? Like I said to the viewers here, so there was a 2016-2018 multi-year agreement, but it's like if everything get put on ice, what is happening, MP McDonald?
All right, Randy, again, good afternoon to your viewers. And let me state categorically here that I'm sitting here. Of course, we cannot divide, you can't divide me, but I'm speaking here as General Secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union. And I want the viewers to get this one clear. I was elected, legitimately elected by a free, fair, and transparent elections held by the Guyana Teachers Union, and I was elected General Secretary. So when I speak here on behalf of the Guyana Teachers Union or on behalf of teachers, I'm speaking here as an elected or as the elected General Secretary. So I want Madam Priya to get that very clear. And don't stop telling people foolishness that I'm masquerading. I don't masquerade. I say things as they are. And when I speak from an informed position as the person, as a matter of fact, as the communications officer and the CEO of the Guyana Teachers Union. So let me make that one clear. But Randy, we would have had an agreement there, which spanned 2016, 2019. That period would have elapsed. However, there's a clause in that agreement which says until a new agreement is inked, the conditions and benefits will continue to flow. You know what happened. We had a no confidence motion, and so the government of the day, there could have been no budget, and nothing much could have happened because they were limited in terms of spending. And so some of the issues or the conditions in that agreement could not have been met then. And then we had the elections, national elections in 2020 on March 2nd. After that, we had a prolonged period. We had the recount and everything else that followed. But I'm saying all of that to say this. We signed an agreement with the government of Guyana. Let me repeat that. We signed an agreement with the government of Guyana. So whether the government was the APNU or the government is, well, the regime that we have now, we signed with the government of Guyana. So I want to clear this notion that of people trying to say, well, why y'all didn't take it then and why you didn't do that then. And we signed an agreement with the government of the day. And whatever rolls over, whoever is sitting in that seat, they have to comply with what is in that agreement because that's a legal agreement. And so we have outstanding, and what we have outstanding is not only 2016, 2019, 2018, 2020. We would have had outstanding what rolled over into the coalitions when they were in government. A housing project, a housing revolving project that we never could have gotten started in 23 years under the PPP. We never could have gotten that one started. We got lots and lots of excuses coming from that administration when they were in government. Of course, we had the hiccups with the banking institutions where we have a sum of monies in an account. These monies are supposed to be dispersed to teachers who were so eligible. All the banking institutions then that we spoke with, they wanted the same interest. They wanted to have teachers pay the same interest that you would normally go when you take a regular loan, whether it's for building a house or whatever. That same percentage they wanted to take on our monies that we're asking them to administrate. We said that couldn't work because it was our money. It's not the bank's money the bank is lending to the teachers. The bank is using our money and they're administrating that. They're administrating the process for us. We had no problem with the administrative cost. But if you were going to ask the teachers to pay the regular percentage in terms of interest, And we tried all sorts of other avenues. The latest of which we tried was to have pull a unit on board to look at that. It did not work. And so that rolled over into the coalition. The coalition then, in the person of Mr. Welch, who was the PS education then, he was on the verge of setting up a unit at the Ministry of Education when a couple of things happened. And then Mr. Welch was no longer PS. And then everything else rolled on to the no confidence motion and the elections and the recount. But Randy, let me say this. Our teachers are owed. I am owed because I'm a practicing teacher. I am owed clothing allowance and not uniform allowance, clothing allowance from 2019 to now. I'm owed monies for additional qualifications from then to now. Our teachers who are in the special needs field, they are owed monies. And so those monies, every time a year passes, those sums are mounting. They are mounting. And so we have huge sums of monies that are out now. We also have teachers who have not been paid or have not had their complete payments of debunching monies. We also have teachers who would have graduated 2016 are still being owed monies because their salaries were on a different scale from the teachers who are graduating now. So the teachers who are graduating now from CPC are receiving more monies than their
Yeah.
seniors who were there.
I know
And that
the bunching never happened. No, is it you're talking about the bunching aspect where you had that salary thing where persons, you know, didn't necessarily
you had
get
that
their
job, you had the
increases.
jobs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
At the
So
various levels.
some persons have not had their complete payments. Some persons have not yet received those debunching monies. And so all of those monies are owed to our teachers. And we have been meeting with the Ministry of Education since this new regime came into being. We have been meeting with the Ministry of Education. We have placed these issues on the table, and they have been repeating themselves over and over and over. And we've gotten tired of hearing, well, the ministry, we have to wait on the Ministry of Finance, we have to wait on the Ministry of Finance, we have to wait on the Ministry of Finance. We cannot continue to tell our members the ministry is saying that they are waiting on the Ministry of Finance. We cannot continue to say that to them. We have said just at a recent meeting, I posited that COVID was not here, but we have COVID now. And huge sums of money, millions and millions and hundreds of millions of dollars, have been plucked out from wherever to deal with COVID. Yes, don't get me wrong, COVID is a national issue, it's a global health issue, and we need to work, we need to put advanced steps in place to deal with COVID. But just the same way we are dealing with COVID, we ought to be dealing with teachers because teachers are important, and we ought to deal with teachers' concerns just the same. There has been foot dragging, and we are not in for any more foot dragging. Hence, after that meeting, we had an emergency meeting with our teachers where we brought them up to date with where we are, what has been told to us, what we have been repeating to them over and over again, and that our teachers will make that decision at a meeting that will follow shortly. Our teachers will decide what course of action we ought to take. Randy, for some reason, I'm not hearing you.
Sorry about that. Sorry, you hear me now?
Good, perfect.
Yeah. So I'm saying to you that quite a lot to unpack there. I'm happy that you gave us the history of how we got here. Um, what can you put down this dragging or this dragging out too. People saying it's overdue and it's time. But what has the ministry said? Why are these things not being done? The bunching, the monies for uniform, the whether the increases. Why is it that we have this dragging?
All right, Randy, let me say to you, let me make one slight correction. It's not uniform allowance, it's clothing allowance. Teachers don't get
Clothing.
uniform allowance, we get clothing
Yes.
allowance. Um, they, I was quite disappointed in one of our meetings because at one of our meetings, when these issues were raised again, the comment we got coming from the sitting minister of education was, "Oh, all these things were sure these are things that she inherited. She inherited." And this was the kind of remark we were getting. I inherited this, and so I am not at fault here. And right away, after the young lady was finished, I had to remind her of conditions and benefits that were inherited by the coalition government. So I don't want to hear talks about who inherited what and who did not inherit what. What we did was to sign a contract with the government of Guyana. So whoever it rolls on to, your government, you got to fix it. And
Yes.
I find it very childish when professional, matured professional people, or we ought to be matured and professional people, would say silly things like those.
Yeah.
If you don't have anything to say, don't say anything. But I want to say to our teachers out there and to your viewers, when it comes to the business of our teachers, our members, we are not going to stand back and allow our members to not be able to access benefits that we would have signed on to. And Randy, you know what happened previously. And we will continue to stand up. Coretta McDonald, General Secretary, and the entire executive of the Guyana Teachers Union, which includes the president, our general council representatives, our executive council members, and our teachers across the board. We are not going to sit idly by and allow these conditions and benefits to just roll and roll and roll, because when they roll, like I said earlier, when they roll, the numbers keep mounting. And when those numbers keep mounting, I know that sometimes it's very difficult for some persons, because when they see teachers having to receive huge sums of monies, which are not really huge in the sense of when you're going into the market and the supermarkets and so on to shop, but it's huge when you see them on figures. When people see those, they sometimes get very envious. And we don't want envious eyes on our business. Teachers are a dedicated group of people, just like our nurses who are on the front line from March last year. They're on the front line and they will continue to be there as long as we have COVID. Teachers are important. Without teachers, we wouldn't have nurses, we wouldn't have doctors, we wouldn't have presidents and prime ministers and ministers of education. So when it comes to our business, sit and fix our business. Tell us something that is acceptable. Don't tell us you're waiting on finance, you're waiting on finance, and finance didn't do this and finance didn't do that. We sat with officials from the Ministry of Education. We worked out everything that is supposed to be worked out. So all we are supposed to be having now are the rolling outs of these financial sums. I'm not sure why it's taking this long. I am not going to put a reason there, but what I'm going to say is that the Guyana Teachers Union would have sounded a warning, and then after that, we're going to have the bell ringing. After the bell would have been rung, it would be time for assembly. I'm hoping that good sense will prevail and that the Guyana Teachers Union would not have to go to the extreme to ensure that our teachers benefit from agreements that have been signed.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. McDonald. We're happy and we're hoping, of course, that they can benefit from those agreements that are signed. I wonder if it is that, like you said just now, they're talking about they inherited things, but you're inheriting an agreement. And, the teachers don't necessarily have to worry about who is sitting in the seat of power. They sign an agreement with the
You know,
government, right?
of course.
It's quite an interesting situation, and I hope that that can be remedied very soon. Let us switch gears a little bit, Miss McDonald. Today we saw another protest happening in front of the office of the president there, where these Guyanese people are making their voices heard, and speaking out against this fraudulent administration. Uh, I don't know if you were there today, and the continued support by the opposition for these protest actions. How necessary is it?
Randy, let me say to you, I was part of the action you were seeing there, or the
Okay.
photograph you were seeing there.
Yeah.
I was part of that. I stood there today as a concerned Guyanese citizen, as a wife, as a mother, as a sister, as an aunt, as a niece. I stood there because I am tired and I'm disgusted with the unnecessary harassment of not only our aunts and our sisters, but of our husbands and our brothers and our uncles. I'm tired of it. And this kind of harassment, which seeks to humiliate and demoralize and criminalize our husbands and our brothers, it must stop. It must stop. We have seen over the last couple of months, several professional men have been drawn, um, called by the CID, the Criminal Investigations Department, the officers there. They have been questioned, they have been detained, they have been shackled and taken to court and being placed on bail. We are tired of this harassment. We have seen, on the other hand, our sisters being dragged before the CID. They have been questioned. Some of them have been detained. Some were placed on bail. Some are still on bail. Some have passed through the magistrates' court. We are tired of this foolishness. And what we are seeing all along is only one set of people, people of African descent, have had to endure this kind of harassment. And I'm saying, this country, we are not on a plantation. We are all Guyanese, and all of us should be treated with the same kind of respect and dignity that others have been afforded. And I am saying that my stance out there this morning is one that I will continue to do. Because when you hear the talks about one Guyana, we want to see the actions that will follow to say, indeed, we are talking about one Guyana. And I want Ifran Ali to know, and the Jagdir to know, and every one of the others to know, that African Guyanese in this country, the women in this country, we will not continue to sit and allow you and your cohorts to terrorize our children by the manner with which you come to lock up our fathers and our husbands and our uncles. We will not stand for that anymore. Our boys are not going to have it. Our girls are not going to have it. Our wives and sisters and mothers are not going to have it. So we're going to stand out there until you understand that we mean business, and we want to see every single Guyanese being treated equally across this land. You cannot decide that you are talking about one Guyana, and for some people who are breaking the law, it's okay. And for another set who are working, doing their earnest jobs, you're penalizing them and criminalizing them because you feel that they are strong supporters of the coalition. We would not have that anymore. And so we are going to continue on that road until our voices are heard and changes are made.
Happy to hear that these actions will continue, because persons, we're trying to listen to the people out there, and people have always been asking, so what are we doing, what is the next step, what is the and I have to say this, and as I have you here, people don't often understand that the opposition is at a real disadvantage in terms of what they can do. Our political system is set up in such a way that the opposition is almost impotent, and I say almost because the power of the people is still there, and people can take to the streets and they can do things. But for example, in parliament, and you may know, whether or not you're there, a simple one-seat majority allows for anything to be passed. And that is, the sad where we are in the country. So the opposition is left to take their parliament to the streets, like what we did in the parliament of people's parliament. So I'm happy to hear that these actions will continue, like the actions are continuing in Linden. The nurses are continuing to hold strong and demand that Mr. Small is moved. And I want to get your take on this before you go. Two more issues I want to raise with you. One, the same issue with Mr. Small, and then I'm going to ask you to comment on this narrative being pushed by the PPP, that somehow they defended democracy on March 2nd as if they were installed on election or March 2nd results, not remembering that we had a recount. And many things were uncovered during that recount that exposed the PPP for the rigors that they are. But they were trying to rewrite history and let people forget that there were 47 boxes without any statutory document. But I want to first tackle this issue as we're still in the month celebrating women. And I raised this yesterday. We don't see the Minister of Health going to Linden to try and ease the situation. All he did was reinstate Mr. Small. We had Kwame McCoy in the parliament assaulting the female MP. We see this continued rhetoric by them that, let's challenge this, and these things are happening and they're not standing up for the women. I want you to comment on that quickly, and do you stand with those women and those nurses of Linden?
Randy, let me say, our movement that would have been started there, starting from last week, we have on our agenda a whole list of issues. Today was just one aspect of it. But since we're on the Linden issue, that fella is out of his mind. Let me say that because I don't want to say other things. He's out of his mind. He is disgraceful, disrespectful, and he's also dumb. Because when you can find a human being who would make those kinds of aspirations, or who would utter words like those about your staff, then something is definitely wrong with that person. And so, since Mr. Small chose to be disrespectful and distasteful, then we definitely have to put him in an area, in a space where disrespect, distasteful, and disgrace is harbored.
If I can
The position of a CEO is not for him.
If I can add, we had revelations when the Prime Minister and Warner Jill was up in Linden, that the nurses sat and said that, you had to go on some dinner with him if you wanted this special price of performance. These comments about, wanting people number and why people don't want to give you your number if you can take you away from your man. And one nurse even raised his unwanted sexual advances. And then she was shut down by Warner Jill. She was shut down by Warner Jill until the media was told not to worry about that until some investigation happens. These were revealed in the meeting. And then we had Leslie Ramsamy saying that, we can't just fire the man just like that. Things got to investigate. This is the same government that fired hundreds of public servants
without any
without any
investigation.
investigation. But you
Mhm.
have a man who is recorded being lewd and disrespectful to the nurses, and you have all of these other complaints, but you say, we can't fight each other because apparently he's one agile friend.
And this is the hypocrisy that I just can't deal with. When during the March 2nd elections, just after that, we had a group of people who called themselves guardians of democracy. I wonder what has happened to the guardians of democracy now. Maybe the them gone and leave the sea, the crazy something. We have, it is disgusting when you see people who stand behind the pulpit encouraging disrespect to women, encouraging men to abuse women, and not say a word, well, not say a word about it, but they cover for these kinds of behavior. Something is wrong with them too. And these are the kinds of behavior that we will not tolerate in our society, because from one mold, it will go to another and to another. We have had enough of our women being killed, enough of our women being abused, and we will take no more of it. Smalley will have to go.
Yeah. As we talk about the guardians of democracy, I want to segue into a segment. Well, I'm phrasing it my own way. Um, I want to segue into this segment that I call the recount robbery. I'm making a special effort, Miss McDonald, as you hear, you're part of this, to highlight to the Guyanese people this attempt by the PPP, and I'm doing it every afternoon because there are a number of PPP trolls here, and hope that they go back and they carry the information correct. That this attempt by the PPP to rewrite history and to revisit history and present themselves as the bastions of democracy and fairness, and paint the APNU AFC as some wrongdoers. We must remember that we had a recount. The PPP would not want you to remember that we had a recount. They would want you to conveniently forget that we went into the boxes and we found a world of craziness, and just believe that they won the elections on March 2nd. When, of course, the CEO made it very clear that the numbers, he couldn't deem them credible. Your thoughts?
Randy, let me say to you, it was not 47 boxes, it was 49 boxes. 49 boxes were there with only ballots inside of them. All the statutory documents that were supposed to have been in those boxes, they were not there. And all of this happened in Region 4 on the east coast of Demerara. Many, many of them. I sat there for 33 days at the recount. So this is not hearsay. This is what I myself encountered. Boxes that came to my station or the station that I was in without statutory documents. We saw persons there whose names, we had the death certificates for many, 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 many persons whose names were ticked off as being voted on the list. And this was not Coretta McDonald ticking them off. This was what was reported on the list. On the list, you had all of these ticks. And we ensured when we got those information with regards to the death certificates, when we randomly called these names to verify from the GCOM staff who were there, whether these persons would have voted, the GCOM staff, they responded in the affirmative. And it was not one set of staff from GCOM that was working. Every day it was a different set of staff working in different stations. So there was no collaboration there with the staff. This was what was on the list. Apart from that, we saw many, many persons who were overseas at that time. They were not within the jurisdiction, but their names were ticked off as being voted on election, as voting on elections day. And that's the kind of skullduggery that the PPP is proud of. That's the kind of skullduggery they are happy to sit where they are now. They are the riggers, let me say this. They are the riggers. They are the sanctimonious gangsters. And Sarah Lynch should put a bag over her face whenever she travels around this country. She should be ashamed of herself. The other one from Canada should be even more ashamed of herself. Some of our good friends who are leaders within CARICOM, they should be ashamed of themselves. And they should never want to come to Guyana unless they can apologize to the people of Guyana for encouraging rigging in this country and sanctimonious gangstering in this country. When we sat there during the recount, it had nothing to do with SOPs. This was the stage of SORs. And coming out of those SORs, we had coming from the chief elections officer, the commissioners at GCOM, and the chairman of GCOM, where they said to us that those ballots will not be counted. All of those ballots coming from those boxes where there were missing statutory documents, they will not be counted. That was an agreement. The agreement was that whatever is unearthed there, the elections would be declared based on credible votes. We got the definition for credible votes, but yet we saw a regime being installed based on votes that were not valid. And this says that we are in for serious trouble if the people of this land don't demand two things. One, house-to-house registration, which would enable us to have a clean, mean list. Not a list with a whole lot of dead people on it. It would enable us to have a clean list so that when we are going to another elections, we know exactly the number of persons who are residing within Guyana and those who would have opted to vote. Otherwise, they are the ones who are going to be on the list. We must ensure that the ID cards that were distributed on the east coast of Demerara, that we don't have a repeat of that. And that's where the rigging took place, and that's where the sanctimonious gangstering took place. So let me say to them, stop labeling the coalition as being riggers. The riggers are the PPP. They are the riggers. And if we were to go back to history, history would show us who were the people rigging the elections all along. But you know, I want to say, Randy, if the PPP are so sure that they would have won the elections by fair means, why are they putting a whole lot of obstacles in the way with regards to the petition? If you know you win, let the petition go through and let the world see that you won the elections and you are the winners. You are the government, the legal government of the day. Why are you putting all these blockages in the way? Allow the petition to go.
They won't allow that. And let me say this, as we talking about petition, I remind them every day that they have failed to prove to anybody, even their own supporters, that they are sitting in the seat of power legitimately. The recount showed that there were massive irregularities in the elections. And the petition, the mechanism by which that is supposed to be proven in a court of law, you are blocking it. What does that say to everybody? And they can run from it as much as possible. At the end of the day, that will be the legacy of the Irfan Ali administration.
Yep.
Fraud. Fraud will be their legacy, and it will walk behind them like a ugly shadow. And like an ugly shadow, the word fraud will be attached to Mr. Irfan Ali's administration until and unless they clear that through election. But let the elections petition happen and let Guyana see that, you know what, these numbers are legitimate and credible. But they know that that is not the case. They know that so many persons who are not supposed to cast the ballot was cast for them. And this will be the continued legacy, and I'm happy that we're ensuring that people understand that this revisionist history being peddled by the PPP as if they are in the seat of power legitimately from March 2nd, forgetting all the time between March 2nd to August 2nd, when the world and the entire country saw what came out of those boxes.
Out of those boxes, yes.
Right. And, you know, I'm happy that, and again, every single day I'm going to remind our supporters, I'm going to remind the PDP people who are on this live, and I'm happy that you brought up, because you were there, a part of that recount, Miss McDowell.
Yeah, yes, I was there. I was there. And Randy, you know, it's just amazing. Just after that illegal group was installed, we saw tons and tons of cocaine, 11.6 tons of cocaine coming out of Guyana. We saw cocaine heading to Jamaica from Guyana again. We saw a plane coming from wherever, crashed in the interior, cocaine on the plane. We would have seen so many wars happening just in a matter of months. And this is a stark reminder to us that whenever the PPP steps on board, these are the woes that will befall Guyana and Guyanese people. We have seen the harassment of the police on ordinary citizens. We have seen police shooting at ordinary citizens. We have seen one group of people being made to rise up against another group of people. We have seen where one group of Guyanese citizens are being told that they are superior to another group of citizens. And all of this happens whenever the PPP is around. And I want our viewers to understand that. I want our viewers to understand that this talk about one Guyana is just mere talks. Just mere talks. We saw under the coalition's administration, almost every community in this country being attended to, much to the annoyance of the hardcore supporters of the coalition, who felt that it was because their government is in place that their government should be pooling or doling out the resources to them. But the president is a man of integrity, and he is a man, or he's the president for all Guyana. And so when resources were disbursed, they were disbursed so that every single Guyanese within this country could enjoy the benefits of the resources that we had available. It was not only for one set of people. We saw the sugar workers. And mind you, it was not the coalition who started the closing of sugar estates. It was under Barrett Jagdeo that sugar estates were closed. Barrett Jagdeo closed sugar estates and caused lots and lots of persons to be on the breadline. But when the coalition came into being and sugar estates were closed because we did not want to live a lie, we knew for sure that sugar was not making any profit and that we were doling out billions and billions of dollars into the sugar industry just to save face. When those estates were closed, the sugar workers were offered an opportunity to be reintegrated into different sectors within the public service. They were offered their severance pay. And so when they talk about, oh, 7,000 people were sent home and they were on the breadline, that is not true. That is not true, but that is the way the PPP like to spin the coin and to pretend as though they are the ones who care. But let me tell you, and let me tell the viewers, those within the cabal of the PPP, they don't care about you, the ordinary man. They don't care about us, the ordinary man, because if they cared about us, they would have been doing just what responsible leaders do in other territories within the Caribbean and in further afields. We have seen the PPP government, after getting into office, all they have been doing is extending the curfew time to facilitate their friends and their cronies and their families at the risk of the people of this country, their health, their lives. That's all they have been doing. We have seen the curfew time extended and extended. We have seen our ports being opened to whoever will may come. You know what happens in Barbados? The same Barbados that a friend who is a friend of the PPP, the leader there, but you know what she did in her country? Any person who steps into Barbados, they have to be quarantined. And they're not being quarantined at home. They have special facilities, hotels that have been identified for them to be quarantined in. And after your period of quarantine, then you have to undergo another test. And when you're cleared, it is only then you're allowed to conduct regular business on that island, and not even regular as what we know regular is, because lots and lots of supermarkets, gas stations, and all of those things are closed, and persons are given specific days on which they can use to go and do their shopping. Supermarkets were given particular days to be opened. Gas stations were given particular days to be opened, weekends only. There was total shutdown. But you know what, in Guyana, this cabal doesn't have respect for people's lives. They don't have respect for people's lives. And so they open all over so that the cocaine could pass, so that they probably could ship out the catfish. We just saw the other day cocaine and saltfish, you know? And these are the things that happens under the PPP. They are a corrupt group of people. And we, the people of Guyanese, will have to demand that decency, integrity, and democracy be brought back to this land. And it can only return to this land if we remove that group of people from squatting where they are right now.
Thank you very much, MP McDonald. Before you go, I want to engage your attention to this idea of schools reopening. I know parents are looking at this program, persons who will be sending their children back into school and worried about the safety. I heard about the shift system that will be happening, and schools are trying to work out how best they can accommodate students, knowing of course that the students they have to start working a blended system, you know, some online and some in school, but school will be reopened fully. What are your thoughts on this?
Randy, for the reopening of schools, that would have to be thoughtfully laid out. Schools cannot, and I would repeat, schools cannot be reopened as they would normally do on a regular basis. So it wouldn't be full-blown reopening of schools, let me put that in quotes, because our schools cannot accommodate full-blown reopening when we talk about the distancing our students. Our schools cannot accommodate their population if they are going to be observing the guidelines coming from the COVID task force. So we are still going to have students and pupils remaining at home while some are having face-to-face classes. And I want to say further, for classes, in most of our classes within the schools, Many schools, we don't have classrooms. Many schools, we have wide open spaces, auditoriums. And those auditoriums, we usually put screens across. And Randy, you know that we put screens across to make our classrooms. Now, for every screen that you're going to put across there, that would be an hindrance. And so, for that reason, we would not be able to have full-blown reopening of schools. Because when we would have done the measurements under Dr. Nicolette Henry, when we did those measurements, in many of those schools, the classroom space could have only accommodated, in some instances, 9 pupils or students, and in other instances, 6. In the nursery schools, we have 15 per class. So if we're talking a space that can accommodate 6 or 9, it means that for every 1 class, we'll have 2 classes. And when we look at the school's population, and let's look at the nursery school. If in a nursery school we have 3 or 4, let's say 4, or let's bring it down to 2 year 1 classes, it means that those 2 year 1 classes will now become 4 year 1 classes. And I'm not sure that we have the capacity for 4 year 1 classes in terms of human resources, in terms of our teachers being there, because we used to have 1 teacher for 1 class. Now that 1 class will be split in 2, so you'll need 2 teachers. Or maybe you have 1 teacher giving some work here and then leaving them there and attending, which will not work. It will not serve the purpose, because the babies at that stage, they require someone to be there with them. So if you're going to leave them, you'll create confusion. That in itself would be a super spreader for COVID, because by the time you remove, the children will run and hold on to each other and hug up each other. So it's not going to work. So we're talking 4 classes. If we have 3 grade year 2 classes, we're talking 6 classes. And I'm not sure that some of our nursery schools have the capacity in terms of space. The same thing for our primary schools, the same thing for our secondary schools, the same thing will happen in some of our tertiary institutions like GTI and Essequibo Technical Institute and Linden Technical Institute, New Amsterdam, and the Practical Instruction Center. So what we are talking here is more space that would be needed. The government already saying they don't have monies. Unless we are going to be renting other buildings. And to rent other buildings, Randy, it requires manpower. So it wouldn't happen.
I understand that there will be most likely a shift system where you have 1 set of students, probably the 5th formers who are coming every day. And then you have a rotation with the other grades. And even that rotation, it's blended. So you have some of the classes online and some you do maybe once a week of a face-to-face session with you. So you see your teacher on Friday or whatever. I don't know how it will work, but this is what the information I'm getting here is that it has to be blended and rotation/shift system. This is how it can work. So obviously we can't accommodate everybody in the school at once.
So Randy, we're talking here based on what you're saying. You were saying which it can develop to maybe the pupils from grade 4, they might be seeing their teacher 1/2 day per week, which doesn't make sense. So what we are gonna have to do, like I said earlier, this will have to be well thought out before we talk about reopening of schools. In addition to the reopening of schools, we have to ensure that we have enough furniture, because when we were in regular times, we had benches and desks. So we had 2 pupils sitting in 1 pair of bench and desk. But now we got to have 1 child sitting there. So it means additional furniture. And that is what is going to pose some of the problems for us if we are going to do the kind of reopening that we so loosely talk about and allowed it to make newscast. We have to think about that. In addition to that, we have to now think about having more cleaners in our schools. We have to think about ensuring that our water system is up and running. I want to use this opportunity to say thank you to Dr. Van West Charles, because under his leadership at GWI, while I'm in during that period, I never had water shortage. But just last week, I had yes, last week I think it was, I had one day when I was told that we wouldn't have any water in Georgetown. And I would want to say, bring back Dr. Van West Charles. He has the key. He knows what to do. But let me continue what I'm saying. We must have our water system must be up, which means if we can't depend on GWI in Georgetown, then we'll have to put water tanks in schools so that the toilets can be flushed after every child uses the toilet. It can be sanitized, and we have water flowing for them to wash their hands as often as possible. In addition to that, we must ensure that we have, or we are going to demand, and these are the things that the GTU will demand, that we have enough bins, we have enough tissue for them to wash their hands, additional sanitizers in every school, not in some schools where there would be easy access for visitation. You're going to load those schools with all the niceties, and in the schools in the outlying areas, if anything may happen there, we are going to ensure that our GTU personnel work with the Ministry of Education, that we go out there to visit schools before the reopening of schools to ensure that our schools are ready for whatever opening we are talking about.
I'm extremely happy that we had this particular conversation, because I know that persons are concerned about the plans put in place. And it's quite telling that we don't have enough information coming from the ministries yet, but we hear murmurs about school reopening. Let me say that I am an advocate for the reopening or the education system rolling again. Right, I believe that our students, especially those disadvantaged ones who can't have access to internet, are suffering. So
Yep.
if, as you said, there is a strategy that is sensible, that will not put our teachers and our students at risk, that can be ruled out, and the ministry can be forthcoming with it. So parents who are sitting at home are concerned can say, well, yes, this makes sense. If that is presented, I am all for that. I am all for ensuring our students continue to get what they're supposed to get from the education system.
And I'm sure that all parents would want to have that happening for their children. Because when you send your children to school, you are placing not only your child at risk, but your life is also at risk. Because when your child returns to the home, whatever that child picks up at school, that child is bringing it home. So as parents, we have to be concerned. We have to ensure that there are enough masks, that our children can have at least 3 masks that they can take off, maybe wash, put on, disposable masks that they can use maybe after every half an hour, maybe an hour, 2 hours, something like that. Because research has shown that wearing these masks for long hours, it can do more damage to us than good. So we have to think about all of those things while we are thinking about the reopening of schools. And let me make it clear, our children's education is of utmost importance to us at the Guyana Teachers Union. The lives of our children are of importance to us. The lives and health of our teachers is of importance to us. So I don't want persons to feel that we don't want schools to reopen and we don't want our children to be educated. We want our children to be educated to the maximum. We want our teachers to be able to go out there and to teach. But we are not going to allow our teachers to go out there and teach when the conditions are not right in terms of them, their health, and risking their lives. We want the conditions to be right so that our teachers can go out there, and when they go out there, they're going to be comfortable. We want when our students return to schools, they are comfortable. We also have to cater for those students and the teachers who have underlying issues, illnesses, especially those teachers and students and pupils who are asthmatic. We have to cater for them. So the mask that they are going to be wearing for long hours, we have to take all of that into consideration. And so these are the lines that we are going to go along to ensure that for whatever period our children are going to be out there, that the period be one which will not pose any risk to their health. In addition to that, our nursery and grade 1 and grade 2 pupils, we have to be very, very careful with them because these are babies now fidgeting themselves around the place. They're out exploring, and it's obvious that they are not going to be able to wear a mask for long periods. So we have to take that into consideration when we think about reopening schools.
I'm again very, very happy that we're on this topic. You're really hoping that Preposition Priya is listening, and she can be a little more forthcoming with the Guyanese public about what are the plans the ministry has in place to ensure the health and safety of both students and teachers. Ms. McDonald, MP McDonald, it was really, really lovely having you today. We had quite an extensive conversation, but before you go, I want to give you the opportunity to plug your program that you have on this same platform here, and give you the opportunity to tell the viewers about your program as we show them your lower thirds. Go ahead.
All right. Every Wednesday evening between the hours of 6:30 and 7:30, sometimes we go a little longer, I host the program called Advancing the Cause. On this program, we talk about topical issues that are affecting us as Guyanese, political issues, health issues, issues that are affecting women. We talk about abuse and just about everything on this program. And this is the program where we advance the cause for the poor people in this country. The poor people in this country, we advance the cause for them. We create the scenario, we create the space for them to be able to share with them issues that are circling, or issues that are trending, if I can use those words, in this country, and how we can resolve these issues. On this program, Advancing the Cause, we seek to empower our women, our boys, our girls, and to uplift our fathers. We seek to bring balance to all on this program. So let me invite you next Wednesday to tune in to Advancing the Cause with your host, Honorable Coretta McDonald, at 6:30, so that we can have a wonderful discussion.
Right. I love it. I love it. Thank you very much. You had so you have to pay me for some advertising costs now that you had an opportunity to advertise.
I want to say thank you, Randy. And I know because it's this month we're celebrating women, you were so kind and gentle to me to have allowed me to advertise my program here. And I know that you are a gentleman and
Yes.
you always ensure that the women are taken care of. It is never in your thought to want to assault any of our
Of
women,
course.
whether
Of
they're of
course.
Afro-Guyanese descent or Indo or Amerindians. It's not in your book. And I want to applaud you for that. And to applaud the guys that you associate with, because I would have seen them, I would have interacted with them from time to time, and I remember there were times when they offered to help me with my bag, especially when you're coming out of Parliament. You have that big briefcase there with all the volumes. They would the estimates, they would help you with your bags. So Randy, I want to thank you for what you've been doing, and I want you to continue to be this role model so that our young boys would emulate what they are seeing from you, and they wouldn't be like that mess Kwame McCoy.
Thank you very much for that. And on that note, we will say, hope that you have a wonderful evening this evening. And it was a lovely
Thank you so much,
discussion this
Bradley.
afternoon.
Thank you for having me on your program.
Thank you very much. Folks, we just had quite a discussion there with MP Coretta McDonald on a number of issues: GTU, reopening of schools, the fraudulent administration's attempt to rewrite history in terms of the election and what happened during the recount. So quite a lot we unpacked there on today's Rush. We're going to rush right now to the close of this program. We want to say thank you again to those persons who are joining us live. We're also again live on YouTube, so you can join us there. You can go look for it on YouTube if you prefer that platform. My name is Randolph Christian, and as I always say to you, let's continue. Remember, we're keeping an eye on the number of protests happening around the country in Linden, in Georgetown, as the fraudulent administration continues to do harm to this country and to the people of this country. Let's continue to work, guys, for national development. And I hope that you enjoy your weekend. I am going to be back with you. I'm going to be presenting the show Sunday Sit Down. And that will be done on Sunday at 10 a.m. in the morning. It's going to be a lovely program. So join me then. Until then, and after then, of course, I'll see you on Monday at 5:30. Do enjoy the weekend actually, and the rest of your evening. Bye bye for now.